Would you agree? Or do you think...
it is a luxury because we generally don't have to do, for instance, interview features with people if we don't like their movies.
No,
and that's something that, most sort of mainstream publications do. That's a fact.
I had to do that with Paul Haggis once. that was it.
But he's great.
Yeah, he's fabulous.
Yes, and still slightly Canadian.
But we should ask Andrew, who again is sort of serving two very different masters here, and we don't have to talk about the TIFF side of it, but for you, for scope, I mean, it's interesting. On the one hand, you want to catch up on the films that have already been pre-chewed, digested, and endorsed by the magazine, and the word goes. But on the other hand, you're sort of trying to see new stuff, because one of Scope's mandates is to always find and write about excellent movies.
Well, you kind of put your finger on it there, is that since I am the anchor of CinemaScope worldwide operations on the Western Hemisphere, I don't tend to leave Toronto, so I don't tend to go to Venice or Cannes or any of the other festivals. So I get to edit the pieces of all the wonderful people who went there and are writing wonderful things about these films, which I need to wait a few more months to see.
Yeah.
So of course you're absolutely right, I am playing a lot of catch up here. But one of the things I do like every year about coming to the festival is that I kind of have no mandate and no marching orders, and I'm really quite free to cast around and find the things that I want to see. And
make a list of all the gallows.
Yes, of course. Haunt the red carpet. Yeah. But and the other thing is that I don't end up usually writing very much about the festival films that I see right off the bat. In fact, I usually write about them in a couple of months. I do an annual kind of TIFF wrap-up piece, usually in November or December. And this is, I think it's really valuable for me at least, in that it gives me some time to think over what I've seen, even if it's not nearly as much as 37, 45, however many films you guys have seen. And it allows me to find some patterns and some themes, not what the festival means, but finding certain kind of affinities, similarities, contrasts between the films that I've seen on my slate. And I don't know, it just gives me some time to digest them more, think about them a little bit more, and especially for some films that have already gotten a lot of comment, now that I've seen what other people are saying, I can say that, well, maybe we can look at this from a slightly different perspective.
That question of time you bring up, I mean, we focused on this last year when Mark and Bob and Scott are here, but since it's all new people, we can maybe get some new opinions on it. Like the idea of how quickly you write about a movie. I'm not tweeting during TIFF, I'm only tweeting about basketball stuff this week, and I know that you're only tweeting links to your writing. You're not tweeting, period.
Or occasionally very snarky things.
Very snarky things. You're not tweeting.
Well, I'm tweeting, but also just like sort of one snarky thing a day.
You are tweeting, but not incessantly.
No.
And Danny, no. Like, we talked about this last year, maybe we can get part 2 of like, this is what happens at festivals. Not only are you expected in the lobby to have your brilliant synopsis ready, but to some extent there's a demand, whether it's a real demand from editors or a perceived demand from your peers to have quick opinions. And speaking of opinions, this is the great Bob Koehler from
every time Adam introduces me in public.
Bob, we're talking about tweeting, and you went on a tweeting rampage, which we're not going to talk about. But can we go back? I mean, we talk about that lag time. How quickly you have to have an opinion, sort of on a movie. Danny, Karina, Fernando.
I mean, for me personally, again, I don't have an editor above me. I'm lucky enough to not be assigned films, and also to be assigned a relevancy quotient, I guess.
Yeah.
And so for me, the question of time is more personal, and it's how I think about watching movies at festivals and what the ideal format for that is. For me, the festival experience is the festival experience like this, where I'm seeing 4 movies a day, 5 movies a day, is not ideal for in-depth analysis and long-form things, which is what I generally prefer, close analysis. And so for me, shorter pieces that are potentially less accurate or less precise, but maybe looser, faster and sloppier, are an ideal format, both because of the time crunch of just like moving around a festival and trying to find space and time to think, but also because I think it sort of hits up front, just by the nature of the form, that I'm sort of incapable of being really thorough and intelligent, in this atmosphere. And,
Well, I think that I used to be really concerned with getting it right at the festival, like, having a definitive argument, the second I walk out of the movie. And then I got it wrong a couple of times, where what I thought I felt about a movie immediately after it ended was very different than how I felt a week later or a month later or after I saw it again. And so now I'm really not concerned with that at all. I mean, I should have some kind of disclaimer on my blogging or on my tweeting, basically being like, I reserve the right to change my mind several times, perhaps.
Bob, you're never wrong. Does that happen to you?
I'm always wrong. No, I know. I completely relate with what Karina is saying because I think everybody has been caught, quote unquote, wrong, on a film. Perhaps there's no wrong or absolute right on a film. It's not as if it's foreign affairs or global politics or ecology, but because there's a wrong side to global warming and there's a right side to global warming. There isn't necessarily a wrong side to potiche and a right side to potiche.
Is potiche where you're coming from?
No, potiche is where I may be going after this. But actually, the state of things in Toronto is constantly in flux, and I don't know if I'm going to potiche or Brighton Rock. But the thing for me is that I'm both tweeting occasionally and also writing long form and capsule reviews for Variety, which require absolute accuracy and complete detail down to technical credits. And many of these I have to write during the festival, and this environment and Cannes are, and also Sundance, I would say, are the three most challenging festivals that I have to cover during the year for Variety, because there's a number of reviews we have to file on site during the festival, and full-on reviews, and so it's very, very challenging to do that. And at the same time, tweeting for me is just gut responses. Hopefully with some wit. Hopefully with fun.
Is it easier for you as someone fairly unique at this table who write
in many ways
in general, who writes for the trades but then also writes for, say, CinemaScope or for a Film Journey? Is it more difficult to file quickly a Variety piece while you're here than it is to compose a longer form piece after the festival about a similar film for a magazine or online format?
Well, there's different challenges. I don't know how I would rate a great degree of difficulty, like they say in gymnastics. It's like the filing of a Variety review, and I'm literally in the middle of writing a review of A Useful Life right now. Therefore, I can't comment on it as much as I would love to for this podcast.
I think it's an excellent film.
But no comment. But
like Mr. Godard.
I'm in the middle of it right now and writing it, and so it's on my mind while I'm watching other films. So that's a little difficult to do that, and you have to compartmentalize, sort of like Bill Clinton, But after the festival is over and your head is clear, and say you're writing more of an essayist or essayistic kind of form, sometimes I find that actually to be the easiest, not the most difficult, but it depends on what you're writing about too. I mean, sometimes it's a hell of a time getting something going when you're writing an essay. Sometimes it comes, very easily.
We should give our audience now what they want after this, which is snap opinions.